When you go quiet after he turns you down, it sends a message louder than anything you could ever speak. It isn't angry, it isn't emotional, it isn't dramatic, it's simply gone, and that disappearance speaks louder than any reaction you could have given. You might not even notice it at first, but that silence, that complete removal of your energy, your voice, your presence, is beginning to sit heavy on him in ways he didn't see coming. He thought he held the stronger position, maybe not intentionally, but in his mind he believed he controlled how things were going. He was the one calling the shot. He said he wasn't ready. He said he needed time. Or maybe he claimed he just didn't feel things the same way you did. And you, being the genuine, open-hearted person you are, accepted it. You didn't beg him to reconsider. You didn't try to argue your value. You didn't break down or chase. You simply stopped. You stepped back. You chose silence. And in that one quiet move, the whole dynamic changed. Because what he didn't anticipate, what most people rarely expect, is for someone to walk away with grace, to disappear without making a scene. He assumed you'd still be around somehow, still orbiting his world, checking in here and there, watching his stories, reacting to his posts, remaining close enough just in case he ever had a change of heart. That's what he mentally prepared for. That's the comfort he expected to keep. But when it didn't happen, when you didn't hover or linger, it bothered him. He might not show it outwardly. You might not see any sign of it in his actions, but underneath, something is tugging at him. Your silence is unsettling, not because you're trying to teach him a lesson or hurt him, but because your silence acts like a mirror. It forces him to see the truth he didn't want to face, that you're not sitting around waiting for him, that you're not hoping for him to reconsider, and that maybe, just maybe, he misjudged who you are. Without even trying, you took your power back. Silence after rejection isn't weakness, it's strength. It's emotional self-control. It's you saying, I know who I am, and I don't have time to convince someone who couldn't appreciate it when it was right in front of them. And that kind of quiet confidence is powerful. When someone rejects you, they usually expect to feel relief afterward. They imagine they've created a neat ending. They picture themselves stepping away cleanly. But what happens when the closure they expected doesn't show up? What happens when instead of tears or anger or endless questions, all they're met with is emptiness? They begin to think. They start to feel the weight of their choice. That clean break they wanted turns into a strange void. And the thing about voids is that they're uncomfortable. They echo, and in that echo, all he hears is the absence of you. He may try to explain it away. Maybe she's playing hard to get. Maybe she's trying to manipulate me. But deep down, he knows that isn't the truth. This isn't a game. This is someone who carried herself with dignity, someone who didn't need to create chaos to make a point, someone who didn't need to cling to be remembered. And the irony is that in trying to protect himself by stepping back, in trying to stay in control of his feelings, he ended up losing the very presence that made him comfortable. Your warmth, your attention, your effort, all of it is gone now, and the silence he once thought he wanted starts to feel like a punishment. Even though you're not doing anything to him, you're simply not doing anything anymore. This isn't about making him regret his decision. It isn't about playing emotional chess. It's about choosing yourself. It's about stepping out of a situation where you weren't fully valued and deciding that you deserve more. And that quiet self-respect is what starts to get under his skin. Not because you hurt him, but because you showed him something he didn't expect. That you're fully capable of walking away from someone who didn't know how to appreciate your worth. And here's the interesting part. Your silence doesn't only make him wonder about what you're doing, it forces him to look at himself, to look at what he overlooked, to question why he didn't try harder, to wonder if he made a mistake. Your absence becomes the space where he confronts his own fears, his own emotional gaps, his own inability to handle something real. And that kind of reflection isn't pleasant. It's easier for him to believe you're still attached. It's easier for him to assume you're secretly watching his page, waiting for some tiny sign from him. But when there is no sign, when the silence continues, that's when the doubt creeps in. He starts wondering if he misunderstood you, if maybe you weren't as attached as he assumed, if maybe instead of him rejecting you, you were simply allowing him to show his true colors. Maybe the rejection wasn't the real story. Maybe the real story is that he wasn't ready for someone with depth. Maybe he wasn't able to recognize something genuine when it was right in front of him, and that realization stings more than he expected. Now the person who walked away quietly becomes the person he thinks about the most. Not because you caused drama, not because you begged him to come back, but because you let go. And in letting go, you became unforgettable. So if you're wondering whether your silence matters, let me tell you, it matters deeply. It is far from passive. It is not weakness. It is the strongest, clearest boundary you can ever set. It says, I gave you my time. I gave you honesty. You made your choice. I accept it, and I'm not here to convince you to choose me again. And while he sits there, filling the silence with distractions, pulling himself toward anything that can keep his mind busy, you're already moving ahead. You're already healing. You're already growing into the version of yourself that aligns with someone who will not need silence to recognize your value. People think rejection is the end of the story, that once someone says, I don't want this, everything ends. The chapter closes. You're supposed to walk away and pretend you're okay. But here's the twist. Your story doesn't end there. For him, that's often where it truly begins. He expected you to follow the usual pattern. Let's be honest, that's what many people expect. They assume that the second they say, this isn't working, the other person will try to prove they're worth keeping. They expect you to reach out, text, ask what went wrong, maybe give one more emotional explanation or try to stay close enough for them to feel important. That's what he thought you'd do because that's what many people do. But you didn't. You didn't chase, you didn't reach out, you didn't ask for clarity, you didn't stretch the story just to keep the connection alive. You didn't offer friendship as a way to stay in his orbit. You just stepped back completely and quietly. No noise, no reaction, no final conversation. And that silence didn't just catch him off guard, it rattled him. Because in his mind, rejection wasn't supposed to create distance. It was supposed to reinforce his sense of control. He believed he would still hold the power even after turning you away, that he could reject you and still feel confident that you'd remain emotionally available, that even if he walked away, you would still be there. It wasn't always malicious, sometimes it's just human ego. People enjoy feeling wanted even when they don't want to offer the same in return. It's comforting to know someone still has a soft spot for you even if you're not choosing them. But when you didn't chase, when you didn't try to hold on to the connection, that comfort vanished. The safety net disappeared. And that moment, when he realized you weren't coming back, is the moment the situation flipped. Suddenly he had questions. Suddenly he felt uncertain. Suddenly he was the one wondering what went wrong, and the uncertainty drove him crazy because you weren't playing the role he expected. You broke the script he thought you would follow. And there is something incredibly powerful about not following the script someone expected from you. Because the moment you choose a different ending, you take back the story. You stop being the one who was rejected and become the one who walked away. You're the unreadable one, the mysterious one, the one who doesn't need to chase after validation or prove your worth just because someone decided to walk away. You became the kind of person who sends a much stronger message than any long text or emotional reaction ever could. With your silence, you showed that you know your value. You showed that if someone can't recognize what you offer, you'll simply leave without arguing and without delay. And that kind of energy is rare. It's unforgettable. And don't think for even a moment that he doesn't feel it. Even if he stays quiet, even if he doesn't reach out, even if he pretends everything is normal, trust me, he feels the silence. He checks his phone, waiting for your name to show up like before. He waits for that familiar notification, the one that used to remind him you were still around. When it doesn't appear, it unsettles him. Not just because he misses you, but because he misses the comfort of being missed. It's in that quiet aftermath when you've disappeared, not to play a game, but because you're genuinely moving forward, that the weight of his choice starts to hit him. Not because you said something powerful that made him rethink everything, but because you didn't say a word. And sometimes silence is far stronger than anything you could have spoken. He thought you would run after him. He thought he would still feel wanted even after he pushed you away. But instead, you taught him a lesson in self-respect. You showed him what it truly looks like when someone refuses to beg for the bare minimum, when someone understands that love is not an audition, something you try to earn or compete for. And if you're not being chosen, you're not waiting around hoping for crumbs. You're walking forward, and that silence becomes louder than anything else. It echoes in his mind, filling the spaces where your voice used to be. Your silence forces him to face what he let go without you needing to remind him. Let him sit with that quiet. Let him feel what it's like when your warmth, your effort, and your attention are no longer there. Because that sound, that empty space, is the sound of you moving on. One of the strongest things that happens when you choose silence after being rejected is that it creates something unexpected, mystery. And mystery, strange as it may seem, is incredibly powerful. When you stop responding, when you stop chasing, you don't just pull back physically or emotionally. You activate a completely different kind of response in him. Suddenly he's left in a space of uncertainty. And uncertainty makes people think hard. Think about it. When someone rejects us, the natural urge is to explain, to fix, to ask why it happened. We want reasons, closure, something to help us understand. And most of the time, the person who rejected us expects some kind of reaction. They expect frustration, confusion, or at least a little emotional chase. They assume you'll be trying to fix things or prove your worth. But when you choose silence, when you refuse to follow that predictable script, you throw him off balance completely. He begins to wonder, what is she thinking? Does she really not care? Has she already moved on? Or is she hurting quietly? Suddenly, the absence of your words becomes the loudest thing in the room. It pulls him into his own thoughts because there's no explanation, no storyline, no easy way for him to move on. He has to sit with his own actions because you're not giving him anything to work with. And that feeling can be deeply unsettling. This reflection goes deeper than he expected. When you stay silent, you don't just make him question what you feel, you make him question himself. He starts replaying moments, decisions, and things he said or didn't say. Was he too cold? Did he act too quickly? Did he ignore something important? Your silence acts like a mirror, making him look straight at the reality of how he behaved. It pushes him to face the outcome of rejecting you. Here's the important part. Mystery creates curiosity. Humans naturally want to solve puzzles, to fill in blanks, especially when it comes to emotions. When he doesn't know where you stand, it starts to bother him. That's why silence is so magnetic. It's the opposite of the reaction he expected. Instead of chasing, explaining, or reacting, you're just calm and distant. And that calm absence becomes a space in his mind he can't avoid. The truth is, when you stop the cycle of over-communicating after rejection, you shift the entire power dynamic. You move from someone who is always available and reacting to someone who stands in their own space with confidence and self-respect. That shift makes him think again. It makes him question if he walked away from something valuable without realizing it. It plants a doubt that grows stronger over time because it wasn't planted by your words, it was planted by your silence. This isn't about manipulation, it's about protecting your peace and showing that your worth doesn't depend on his approval. When you choose silence, you're saying, without saying, that you don't need to convince anyone of your value, and that kind of quiet confidence is magnetic. It also changes what rejection means. Rejection doesn't define you, it doesn't decide your value, it's simply someone else's choice, one that doesn't control your future. When you go silent, you take your power back. You're not letting rejection break you or make you desperate. You're giving yourself permission to rise, grow, and move forward while he sits with what he lost. And silence gives you something you truly need. Time. Time to breathe, time to think, time to rebuild from the inside. Instead of being caught in emotional back and forth, you allow yourself room to heal. That's where the transformation happens, because when he sees you steady and composed even after he rejected you, he realizes you're not someone easily shaken. You become more intriguing, more respected, and more unforgettable. So this silence is not about hoping he comes back or regrets the decision. It's about honoring yourself enough to stop chasing answers from someone who couldn't give them. It's about knowing that your worth stays the same no matter what he chooses, and in that quiet space something shifts, for him, for you, and for what might come next. Silence can be the loudest message you ever send. One of the most powerful choices you can make after someone turns away from you, after he pulls back, ends things, or closes the door, is to simply say nothing. It feels opposite to what your emotions want. You might want to defend yourself, plead your side, or let out the hurt. But silence speaks louder than all of that. When you don't chase, when you don't beg or try to prove anything, you show him exactly how valuable you are without using a single word. Think of it like this. When someone rejects you, they're often acting from their own fears or uncertainty, not because you lack something. But what you do after that moment shapes everything. It shapes how he remembers you. It shapes how he sees himself. It shapes what he realizes he may have lost. Responding with silence shifts the story completely. Instead of giving him the reaction he expects, the pain, the confusion, the argument, you become someone who respects herself too much to beg. That silence isn't emptiness, it's strength. It's your self-respect echoing in a place that was once filled with doubt. And that's exactly why silence is so magnetic. By not trying to prove anything, you send a clear message: I know my worth. And that message is impossible for him to forget. It stays in his mind long after the moment has passed, because he expected you to reach out. He expected you to need closure. He expected to feel powerful by watching you try to fix things. But when you choose silence, you don't give him any of that. You don't hand over your emotional control to someone who walked away. And something interesting happens. Instead of feeling free, instead of feeling relieved, he ends up with questions. Why isn't she trying? Why doesn't she seem hurt? Why is she so calm? And that doubt, that sudden shift in power, is where your strength shows the most. This silence isn't about punishing him. It's about protecting you. It's about respecting yourself. It's about understanding that your time and your energy have real value and should not be wasted on someone who cannot see what you bring to the table. It's about reminding him, and more importantly, reminding yourself, that you have standards, you have limits, and you are not willing to lower them just to be someone's backup option or temporary choice. The strange thing is that when you stop trying so hard, when you stop explaining yourself again and again, people begin to see you through a different lens. They start to see you as someone complete, someone steady, someone who naturally deserves respect. And respect, that's the foundation of every strong relationship. You don't need to say, look at me, I'm great, because your silence already expresses it. It says, I'm not desperate, I'm not clingy, I'm someone who knows my worth and will not settle for less. And energy like that is magnetic. It draws people in because it's uncommon, it's refreshing, it's powerful. But here's the important thing. This isn't about pretending to be hard to get or acting distant. It's about being genuine. It's about giving yourself the time and space to heal without feeling the need to explain your sadness or your hurt to someone who chose to leave. It's about taking back your story and refusing to let someone else's rejection define who you are. You might feel the urge to fill the silence with noise, to call him, message him, or post things online that secretly show your hurt or confusion. But that noise often hides your real value. It can make you look reactive, unsure, or too available, and none of those things make you more respected or more desired. Silence, on the other hand, is calm. It's steady. It's a quiet kind of confidence that says, I'm okay without you. And when you truly become okay without someone, something powerful happens. They start to realize that maybe they lost something meaningful. This silence also gives you room to think. It lets you understand what you're feeling, reflect on the situation, and grow from it. When you stop chasing or trying to be understood, you free yourself to focus on what matters most: your own peace, your own growth, and your own healing. And here's something else. When you refuse to run after someone who rejected you, you protect yourself from getting hurt again. Because chasing usually leads to more rejection, more confusion, and more emotional pain. But silence creates boundaries. It holds your dignity in place. It lets you walk away feeling strong and collected. So yes, your silence after his rejection is not emptiness. It's a quiet lesson. It's showing him your worth in a way no words ever could. And it's teaching you too how to treat yourself with honor even in disappointment. Because at the end of the day, the most attractive thing you can do after being rejected is to stand with yourself, to stay calm, to stay grounded, to stay silent. Because in that silence, you are not just recovering, you are rising, and that silence, it shakes him, sometimes even more than anything you could ever say. People often think that rejection is this final, painful blow that defines who they are or dims their light. And it makes sense, because when someone turns you down, it feels like the ground moves beneath you. But here's the truth many don't understand right away. Rejection doesn't make you less valuable. It doesn't change who you are. What truly defines your attractiveness, your strength, your personal power is how you react to that rejection. That is the real turning point. You see, many people, when they get rejected, do exactly what the other person expects. They get upset, they chase, they try to explain, they ask for another chance. They open their heart in hopes that if they just say the right thing, the other person will finally recognize their worth. But what really happens is the opposite. Chasing pushes the other person away even more because it shows insecurity. It says, I need you to validate me. And nothing kills attraction faster than someone who doesn't believe in their own worth. But when you respond to rejection with strength, grace, and especially silence, that's what makes you stand out. Silence is a message on its own. It says, I'm whole even without your approval. It says, my value isn't defined by your choice. And that kind of energy is incredibly attractive. It pulls people in instead of pushing them away. It makes someone stop and wonder, what did I just walk away from? Because chasing someone means you give away your power. You hand over control of your emotions, your value, your peace. You let someone else decide how you feel. And when someone else controls your happiness, you end up constantly reacting, constantly adjusting, constantly trying to be enough. But when you remain calm, composed, and even a little mysterious, you take your power back. You become the one who sets the tone. You become the one who decides what you deserve. That's why silence after rejection feels so intense for the person who rejected you. It surprises them because they expect a reaction: anger, tears, confusion, begging. Instead, they get nothing, and that nothing is loud. It pulls them inward. It makes them rethink what they did, what they walked away from, and whether they underestimated who you are. Here's an important truth. Rejection is often not about you. It's about what the other person is dealing with. Sometimes they're not ready, sometimes they're afraid, sometimes they don't know how to handle something real. That's their limitation, not yours. So your reaction becomes a mirror. If you fall apart, it confirms their doubts. But if you hold your head high, it challenges their assumptions and may even make them regret their choice. There's also something deeper here. People are naturally drawn to confidence. They're attracted to someone who respects themselves. When you show that you don't need to beg for approval, you activate something instinctive. It signals that you have boundaries, that you are not afraid to walk away, that you value yourself. And ironically, when you treat yourself that way, others begin to treat you with more respect too. This is why silence is so powerful after rejection. Words can sound emotional or desperate, but silence is steady. It doesn't break. It shows that even though their decision affected you, it didn't destroy you, and that kind of resilience is rare and very desirable. You might wonder, what if he never comes back? What if I lose him forever? But your worth has nothing to do with whether he returns. Your worth is natural. When you respond with silence and dignity, you are opening space for better things. For relationships where your value is recognized without question. You are making room for someone who meets your level, someone who respects your boundaries and sees your strength as something amazing. And there's another piece of this. Silence is also a form of protecting yourself. It saves your emotional energy from being drained by someone who cannot or will not give you the love you deserve. It's your way of saying, I choose peace, I choose dignity, I choose myself, because the most attractive thing you can ever offer the world is a peaceful, grounded version of you. That inner peace draws people naturally. It makes you unforgettable. So when rejection happens, don't rush to fill the gap with explanations or apologies. Don't convince yourself that chasing someone will change their mind. Trust the silence. Let it be your steady strength. Use it to grow, to reflect, to reconnect with your true worth. Because rejection might feel like the end of something, but how you respond to it is the beginning of something even better. And that next chapter is yours to shape. One of the strongest parts of going silent after rejection is what it does inside you, not just what it does to him. There's this belief that when someone rejects us, we instantly lose power, that somehow we become less desirable or less important. But rejection doesn't take away your value. It doesn't erase your ability to attract what you want. What truly shifts your life is your response. When you don't chase, when you don't explain, when you don't overwhelm him with messages trying to fix things, you're doing something powerful. You're taking back your dignity. You're choosing yourself. And that choice changes everything. Because while he's sorting through his own thoughts, you're growing, you're becoming stronger, wiser, and more confident. He may have thought rejecting you was the end, but silence gives you clarity. It gives you room to breathe, time to think, and space to heal. And in that space, you transform. You look at what you want, what you deserve, and what you will accept moving forward. And that transformation isn't just healing, it's leveling up. You stop being the version of yourself who waited for his approval. You become someone who no longer needs it. Here's the unexpected part. Because you've grown, because you've stayed silent, because you've stood firm, there's a big chance he will return. But he won't be coming back to the old you. He'll be coming back to someone stronger, someone he can't take for granted, someone who has changed. When he rejected you, he rejected one version of you, but your growth shows him that version is gone. You're not the person who settles. You're not the person who needs constant reassurance. You're not the person who accepts excuses, and that shift shakes him. Your silence isn't empty. It's full of change, full of self-respect, full of new strength. And when he feels that, it hits him harder than anything you could say. He might return, but now the choice belongs to you. And that's the beauty of growth. You're not the one waiting anymore. You're the one deciding. You're not desperate. You're not begging. You're not trying to convince him of your value. You simply stand in it. And that confidence is irresistible. Your silence also gives you space to ask yourself the important questions. What do I want next? What kind of love do I deserve? What kind of life am I building? And when you come out of that quiet season, you're wiser, you're more selective, you're ready for real love, the kind that sees your worth instantly. This isn't about punishing him, it's about choosing growth, it's about aligning yourself with better, it's about moving towards someone who values you deeply. So remember, your silence after rejection is not an empty moment, it's a reset, it's a rebuilding, it's you creating a stronger, more confident version of yourself. And if he comes back, it's because he finally sees what your silence revealed, that you're someone of value, someone with standards, someone who refuses to be treated as an option. But even if he never returns, you've already won, you've already risen, you've already chosen yourself, and that is the biggest victory of all.